Let's draw a piece. Now that we have some default measurements, we can start entering points. The first point we will create will be of the type coordinate. Let's draw point A, the start point. A point created with the coordinate point method is always measured from another point. You determine a reference point, the from point, and then you tell MacroGen how far away the new point is and in what direction. If the from point's location is changed, usually because the user put in different measurements, this means the dependent point will move also. Each of our points will need a name and a distance from the last point. From the tab panel, select Point, then Add Coordinate, and this form opens. We're going to call this point A. We're referencing it to the start point, and we're setting it at distance 0x and 0y. So it really is exactly at the start point. Then click OK. And we've added our point. Great. Add point B. Let's add a second point. We're going to draft a rectangle whose width is 1/2 the neck measurement, so let's mark this out. We're going to add a coordinate point. This will be measured from point A. It got that automatically. We're going to call our new point B. It's measured from point A, and we're going to use the neck measurement. We're going to scale it by 1/2. Okay, looks good. Comparing this result with our drafting instructions, it's clear right away that we've made a mistake. Point B is supposed to be directly to the right of point A. It's the neck, right? So what happened? We put in the Y measurement when it should have been the X measurement. I actually did this on purpose. The reason is because I want to show you how to change a measurement. So I'm going to select point B, and let's just correct it. So this is going to be neck. This is going to be none. We'll return this to the default value and change this to 2. Okay. So now we have it going horizontally instead of vertically. So let's click OK. I just wanted to show you that if you enter something and you made a mistake, it's fairly easy to fix it. Let's create a third point, which we will call C. So it's going to be a coordinate point, add coordinate, and we're going to call it C. It's measured from point B in a vertical direction. That's Y instead of X. We're going to give it a scale factor of -1, which will mean that the direction of measurement is reversed. It's down instead of up. So that's Y measure, and we want it height, and we're going to scale it by -1. OK. Click OK. Notice that we're just creating points here. We haven't connected the dots. We'll do that later. Now let's add point D to complete the rectangle. To create it, we're going to use a rectangle point instead of a coordinate. So that's point, add, and then rectangle. The rectangle point type means that no matter where points A and C are placed, D will automatically be put at the corner of the rectangle. I'll show you and you'll see what I mean. We're going to call it D, and we're going to make it defined by points A and point C. Okay. And there we go. So this is point D, and now we've got a full rectangle. So your drawing should look just like this. If it doesn't, remember you can edit the points by clicking on them and then change whatever values or names or whatever you want to change. Next, let's add point E, which is a midpoint. We're going to say that point E marks a point halfway down the rectangle. We're going to click Point, and then Add, and then Center. MacGen menus. All MacGen commands can be selected in 2 ways, via the menus or through the tabbed panel. The tabs in the panel correspond to the same commands in the pull-down menus, but are specifically designed to make it easy to access the measure, point, and object commands. In the instructions so far, we've been using the tab menus. If you can't remember what a particular icon is for, just point at it with your mouse. So we'll pick an icon here. A yellow tooltip pops up at the cursor location, and down below here, a longer description is displayed in the message bar. This is at the bottom of the main MacGen window. If you mouse over the zoom commands, you'll see that some of the commands also have a hotkey. So for zoom in, it's going to be F3, and zoom out, it's going to be F2. Let's go ahead and add point F. We're going to use the tabbed menu again. So from the point tab, and then click add, and it's going to be a coordinate point. We're going to call it point F. And what it actually is the curve at the back where the hood begins. It will always be the same distance from B, so we're going to use a fixed distance value. I'm going to enter that value here. It's going to be -8. That means 8 to the left. And we're referencing from point B. Click OK. Excellent. Now let's add point G. Point G is going to mark the other end of the curved section in the upper right. It's going to lie on the line that connects points C and B, and it will be 8 centimeters from B. We're going to use the continue type of point, which puts a new point on a line drawn through any two existing points, and the distance is relative to the second point. So if we have a distance of -8, that means it's going to be on the line from C to B, 8 centimeters from B in the direction of C. Okay, that may seem a little confusing, but if you think about it, continue past, continue before, minus distance. Yeah, that kind of works. So let's create it. So I'm going to go point, add. It's going to be a continue point. We're going to call it G. And the start point will be C. The end point for our line will be B. And then we're going to have a distance of -8. Okay, looks right. Click OK. And there we are. So here's our point G. So we're going to draw a curve through here. That's our objective. Okay, our next point is going to be H, and we're going to use a center point for this. So we'll set H as the center between points C and D. That's going to be about right here. Okay? So, point, add, center. We're going to call it H, and it goes from C to D. And OK. And here's our H point. Okay? Now we're going to do another center point. This is, we're going to call this one J, and it's halfway between C and H. So that's going to be about here. Okay? So point, add, center. We're going to call it J. It is from C to H and OK. There we go. So this came up in the right spot. Okay, next let's add point L. That's going to go here halfway between D and H. So point, add, center. We're calling it L, and it is between D and H. Okay, that looks right. Okay, we're going to add another point that we're going to call K, and it's going to go here halfway between H and L. So again, that's point, add, center. We're going to call it K, and it is between L and H. Great. And OK. So here's our K point. So if you're following along at home, this might be a good time to try and check and make sure that everything's labeled correctly, all of the points are in the right order and in generally the right position. The original instructions tell us to move point A, that's this one, 2 centimeters away from the rectangle. MacroGen doesn't move a point after it's already been used, so instead we'll define a new point and call it A2. So that's going to be a coordinate point because it's using numbers, a coordinate, and we're going to call it A2. Mind you, I'm following her instructions and her lettering. I might have used different names for these, but I'm just trying to make it match to Lena's original documentation. So it's from A, and the X measure is going to be -2, and the Y measure is 0. Okay. We are also going to need to place points D2, K2, and L2 on a curve below the bottom of the hood. These points are based on D, K, and L. In other words, points A, D, K, and L aren't really part of the pattern. They're intermediate values used as part of a two-step process to calculate the actual points needed. When you get into a situation where a point's location requires a complicated calculation, there will usually be more than one way to translate the original drafting instructions to the MacroGen tools. There is no particular right method. You will notice later that although points A, D, K, and L appear in the object window, they won't be used to create objects and therefore won't be seen in the final pattern. They're just kind of marker points. So let's make our next point. That's going to be D2. Point, add, coordinate. We're going to call it D2. And it's offset from D, which is here. They're all in alphabetical order. And the distance is going to be -3 in the Y direction. So -3. Y is up and down, right? Okay. And we can't see point D2 yet. We'll zoom out in a second, but let's just make the other points too. We need an L2, so that's point, add, coordinates. We're going to call it L2, and it's offset from L, and the distance is going to be -3 in the Y direction. And OK. Now let's zoom so we can see it. The zoom commands are up here. We have zoom all, zoom in, zoom out. Okay, let's just try zoom all. Okay, so there's our D2 and L2. Finally, we need to make a K2, so that's going to be point, add, coordinate, and we're calling it K2, and we want to offset it from K, and the distance in the Y direction will be -1.5, -1.5, and OK. Okay, that's great. We've laid out our points. Our next step will be to create an outline.